Hi, my name is Dan Damman. I'm the mayor of the city of Marysville. You've heard throughout the community discussion as to whether or not this is something the city should move forward on or maybe we shouldn't. I'd like to discuss with you today a little bit of the background as to why this is on the ballot on November 3rd and explain to you what we might seek to accomplish if the advisory vote goes through or if it's a yes vote on November 3rd. Backing up, every year during our budget sessions, the City Council and City Administration is charged with the task of determining where our tax dollars are being spent. And we obviously, as a city, we have many things we need to take care of and to pay for: our infrastructure, our roads, our buildings, our personnel, our workforce. And this year specifically, we were asked again to put $50,000 into an HVAC system in our current recreation center. Our recreation center is the fire hall that was vacated by our fire department in 1996. It sits in Marysville Park. It was built in 1933, and in essence, it's a glorified garage. It has served as home for the Marysville Recreation Department since the Marysville Fire Department left. When we were asked to put another $50,000 into this building, I think the discussion started with, at what point are we going to stop kicking the can down the road? At what point are we going to take an inventory of the future of the city of Marysville and see how we can start to accomplish some of the tasks on moving the city forward? And this was one of those. As a backdrop to this, I think it's also important to note that our city hall sits on, of course, city-owned property, but it's a 14,000 square foot building. We occupy, as a city, the first floor, which is 7,000 square feet. The top floor is also 7,000 square feet, but it's essentially empty. We have one meeting room up there and we have one secretarial space up there. The second floor of City Hall used to be occupied by the school's executive offices, and when the new high school was built, the school's executive offices moved out of that and moved into the new high school. We've got essentially 7,000 square feet of void space in the city building. The recreation center, as I said earlier, is the glorified fire hall built in 1933, not ADA compliant, and really, as it pertains to usable space, there is nothing more than the garage there. And if you've been over there, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been over there, I would encourage you to stop by and just feel for yourself what this building is like. It has serviced us as a recreation center because we've had to use it as a recreation center. We didn't have another choice. But what you have in the city of Marysville is you've got a progressive council, yet one that is fiscally conservative. When we started discussing putting more of our taxpayer dollars into the recreation center, we thought we should have an alternative conversation. The alternative conversation was, can we use our taxpayer dollars more effectively? Can we create something for the city of Marysville, for its residents, that serves them better? So we started the discussion of a municipal campus. We also have a museum in the city of Marysville, and that is also housed in the park. That's the old city hall, also not ADA compliant. If you have never been through there, it doesn't necessarily surprise me because it is open by appointment only. So the discussion became, how can we incorporate everything that I've just discussed with you into one building and make that building something that can service the entirety of the city? The proposed site for the municipal campus would be just north of the existing public safety building. It's important to note that that space, that property, is already owned by the city of Marysville. It's also important to note that if this project moves forward, that we would be selling City Hall either for development or for repurpose. So on November 3rd, there is an advisory vote. And the advisory vote, in essence, asks the question, should the city of Marysville investigate selling City Hall and building a municipal campus to house City Hall, the Recreation Department, and the museum, as long as doing so would not increase your taxes? It would not cause a higher millage rate. And the reason we decided to go to an advisory vote is because back in 1996, there was the proposition of a recreation center. And with that proposition came an increase in millage. When that particular issue went before the voters on an advisory vote, it was beaten by a margin of, I believe, about 3-1. It was something that the residents of our city felt very strongly against, that they didn't want, and that was a pure recreation center. Now, To differentiate what I'm talking about now as compared to 1996, in 1996 the price tag was about $7 million. It incorporated a pool, water slides. It was very similar to what was built in Port Huron as the YMCA. This proposition that's going to be before you on November 3rd as an advisory vote is much different. I believe it is a very fiscally conservative yet progressive building. It would house the Marysville city offices, clerk's office, city manager's offices. It would of course house the city council chambers. And on the diagram that you're seeing in front of you, you will see that there's a big orange box. That would be city council chambers. Below that, there are two smaller boxes that are also orange. Those orange boxes are the meeting rooms, and those would take place of the meeting rooms that we currently have in City Hall. When you're looking at your screen, to the left of those big orange boxes is a set of smaller orange boxes, and that would essentially incorporate the city departments. So that would be the city clerks, assessors, city managers. Moving to the right, you see two big blue boxes at the top. Those two big blue boxes, the first would be, or the one in the middle, would be space for all of our museum artifacts. The design of this particular building, although again this is not anything that's set in stone, this is something more of a proposal or something that our residents can take a look at to determine whether or not this idea is something that they would want the city to move forward on by way of investigation. So the big blue box is a room that would house all of our museum artifacts. To the right of that, you see another box, and that's a community center. And the design of this building is a pod type of design. What that means is it can be expanded at a later date to accommodate the changes of the city as the city progresses. So this would be the room to the right of the museum room would be a community room. And this is a room that you could rent out for birthday parties or showers or some other type of party or event. And to the right of that, and in the diagram, this would also be to the south, there's a purple box. A purple box is a kitchen. In this kitchen, you could have cooking classes, but you could also cook for the community center, and it opens up into the gymnasium, which is the big brown box all the way to the right and at the top. This would be a city-owned gymnasium, and this particular gymnasium would be run by the city rec department. And I want to come back to that in just a moment. Below the community room, you have essentially what will be the city recreation offices. It would be the office for our recreation director, and then there are two community rooms, what would be to the south of that or to the right of that. Those two classrooms will be used for yoga and Pilates or any other types of activities that would require some type of a smaller classroom. In this particular design, again, this is only a concept, if you will. That room can be divided into two smaller rooms, or it can be, the divider can be taken out at any time to make it one large room. Moving again south or to the right, there is a display of one smaller brown box and one larger light green box. And the key, I think, in part to this particular design is that those are proposed all-weather, all-year, indoor practice and sports facilities. What can take place in there is practice for baseball, for Marysville Little League, practice for football, practice for soccer. Depending on the size of the building, it may be able to host an indoor soccer league, again run by the recreation department. But this really would allow, this particular design would allow for all of our youth sports to use this facility to enhance their skills 365 days a year, or at least the days that they're open. I would say probably not the federal holidays, but really a year-round training facility for our youth sports programs. And you know, obviously the goal for that is to enhance the youth sports programs, but also they are the feeder programs for our varsity sports, and ultimately to enhance our varsity sports as well. As I stated, I wanted to come back to the gymnasium. And the gymnasium is important because although the city of Marysville has 7 gyms within its borders, all 7 gyms are owned and occupied by the school district. And we don't live in an era where our recreation department can bring people into a school facility during normal school hours. So really what this does is this limits us to after school and sometimes in the summer. However, as different activities increase in the schools, we can't depend on the availability of those gyms, and when we can't depend on the availability of the gymnasiums, we cannot then structure our recreation around those gymnasiums. There's been times where we have had programming and it's been set for a gym, but there is something that comes up by way of a school function, and the school function will always take priority. So this particular design would allow for a gymnasium to be completely owned, completely occupied, and completely run by the Marysville Recreation Department. And what that allows is for recreation in our own gymnasium from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. whenever these recreational activities would cease. So what I've just detailed to you really is the overview or the overlay of a proposal. Now, this is not anything that's set in stone, and this isn't the building that would have to be built, but we wanted to be able to give you the idea of what it is that we're talking about. We didn't want to talk in the abstract. And so Bill Vogan, our architect, at multiple meetings, and this is not something that was pulled out of thin air, this is a proposal that was thoroughly discussed and vetted with city administration and certain members of city council as well. And really this is a proposal that we thought our residents could wrap their minds around and say that this is something that the city could further investigate. What's important at this point, I think, to point out is that we have the ability to sell the property that City Hall is on. The property that City Hall is on could be developed, it could be purchased. We have 3 offers for City Hall right now as we speak, and obviously we wouldn't be moving on any of those unless we were to move forward on something like this. But I really think, to bottom line the municipal campus, we're asking the voters for their input. We sought an advisory vote to get the pulse of the community. When I spoke at the Marysville Rotary about a month or 2 ago, the question was asked to me, isn't this something that City Council and City Administration could just move forward on? And the answer to that is yes. But I can tell you from my personal point of view, and I can speak on behalf of the Council and City Administration as well, that this is not a project that we wanted to force upon our residents. We would like our residents' feedback on this. And that's the reason we decided to go to an advisory vote. And I want to make very clear that the advisory vote, if it passes by a margin of 51% to 49%, that doesn't mean that we go out and we break ground on this project. But what that means is that you are allowing city administration and city council to move forward on determining whether or not this project is in the best interest of the city of Marysville. When we take a look at what draws somebody to a city, the first is if they are somebody with a family or somebody that plans on having a family, the first question that's always asked is, what is the school district like? What are the schools like? What type of education is my child going to get? And hands down, I think Marysville has some of the very finest schools in the area. They're recognized on the state level, they're recognized on the national level. We provide an extraordinary education in the city of Marysville. The next maybe issue or criteria that a family thinking about moving into a different area looks at is how safe is the community. Marysville obviously boasts its own paid police department. It boasts its own fire department, and it has its own EMS rigs. We've got 2 ambulances that are monitored and run by the Marysville Fire Department. Very, very low crime rate. So when comparing, when looking at the educational system, when looking at the safety of the community, Marysville is a clear winner, certainly clearly ahead of municipalities and townships in our local area. But really the next question that's asked is, what can I do when I'm not working? What do we offer by way of recreation? And the city of Marysville has an extraordinary park system. It has its own 18-hole golf course. We have enhanced the golf course with grants totaling about $2.6 million over the course of the last year and a half. We have enhanced the waterfront with grants totaling about $3 million over the course of the past 2 years. We've enhanced the boardwalk. So when you take a look at what recreation has as we sit here today, infrastructure-wise, what we're lacking is a place where all of the residents can gather, all of the residents can recreate. We have no multi-generational recreation at this point. We don't have recreation from ages 2 to 82, and with a building like this is something that we could do. So when balanced with the great educational system that we have, with the extraordinary public safety that we have, we believe as a city that if we're able to move forward on a project like this, that this will certainly enhance the lives of every resident in the city of Marysville and further be a draw to those looking to move to a new location. So when you go to the voting booth on November 3rd to vote on this advisory vote, we ask that you really thoroughly discuss with your friends and with your neighbors what this really means. And we ask that you thoroughly educate yourself on what this could mean for our community. If you have any questions, I hold office hours on the third Thursday of the month from 3 until 4:30. We have city council meetings on the second and fourth Mondays of the month. City administration is readily available to answer questions, but the bottom line is on November 3rd, we're going to be asking for the public to weigh in on an advisory vote. And to be very clear, even if the vote is yes, this doesn't mean that we move forward on the project. This means that we are able to further vet the issue to determine whether or not this is in the best interest of the city of Marysville. Thank you.